So number 13 and 14, numbers 13 and 14 say, identify the mistakes made while solving the given quadratic equation and explain why they are mistakes in complete sentences. Provide the correct solution with the complete work shown below. For some of you, it might be a good idea to go ahead and figure out the correct solution with complete work. Remember, you're trying to explain why all this work is wrong. And if you did the complete work, you might be able to identify the incorrect things while you're doing it. And that might help you figure out the errors. But I'm going to just go ahead and go through it right now. Now, the program that I type this up in does not allow me to do the plus minus within the expression, so that was already supposed to be a plus minus. If you identify that as a mistake, that's great, that's fine. But go ahead and make it plus minus. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just think about, as you do the quadratic formula, I know that A is 3, B is -5, and C is -8. So I'm just, for myself, going to start filling out the quadratic formula. X equals, let's see, negative b, so it's already a -5, which makes it a +5. And then I check this and I see that's a -5. So that's my first thing. That should be a +5. X equals -b plus and minus the square root of b squared. Now when I think about b squared, it is -5 squared, and if you write it like this, which is how it's written right there, it kind of looks wrong, and in fact, you see that it does get the wrong answer. I know that it is -5 itself squared, I'm just going to go and do that, minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is -8, all divided by 2 times a, which is 3. Okay, so far I've identified the fact that b should be, -b should be +5, so that's wrong. And then, you know, a lot of you guys go ahead and write it like this, -5 squared, but then you give me a +25, but as you can tell, they didn't give me, I mean, they literally did -5 squared, which is -25. So that right there means it's an error, okay? I read with you. If you do this on your paper, but then you give me a +25, then I don't worry about it. Okay. So 5 plus and minus. Well, I guess I might as well go ahead and start writing my sentences. Identify why, explain why they're mistakes. I guess I could say, in the quadratic formula, the first term is -b. In this equation, b is -5, so -b should be +5 instead of the -5 given. So that identifies that one. I'm going to put a check mark as I do them, because I'll do them in a different color. Okay. Inside the square root, when you plug in b into b squared, you should always put parentheses around the number b if b is negative, to avoid getting a negative number by mistake. When you square it. Now, I'm okay with writing little symbols like that and writing negative, you know, in parentheses instead of actually writing negative. When you do in math, a lot of times when we write in math, we use symbols as well as actual sentence structure, so it's okay if you use symbols inside there. Okay, so I've addressed both of those. So now let's see where it goes next. And if you want to label the steps 1, 2, 3, that might be helpful. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the next thing, I'm going to go ahead and keep working my problem. So I'm going to do what they did. I'm going to split it up. I'm going to say negative 5 squared is positive 25. Now I'm going to say minus. Now if I say minus, then I'm not including the negative in my work, okay? 4 times 3 times negative 8 is in fact a negative 96. So I am saying, or you can think of it as this, negative 4 times 3 times negative 8, in which case you've got a negative times a negative. Either way, that should be plus 96. And they have a minus 96. Okay? So, this right here. Now, soon I'm not going to be able to use my work to explain it anymore because I have to go with what they did. But I can still say this. Negative 25 is wrong. We've already established that. But so is negative 96. It should be a positive 96. And then all divided by 6. Now, there's the next thing. I don't know if you noticed this, but when I do this line, I do it all the way underneath 5. And if you notice right here, it stops being negative 5 being divided by 6. Now, do they eventually correct it? Yes. But am I going to struggle with myself on whether or not I may want to count off maybe a quarter point for that? I might actually do that. Okay, so you need to be careful that when you do this, that right there, maybe you write yourself a note, that line should be extended underneath both. Okay? So, I'm going to go ahead and address that. In step 2, the student should have, or the student, I could say, forgot. Nah, I said should have. Put the whole expression over 6 instead of just the square root. Now, by the time I get to the bottom, I'm going to have a lot written here. There is going to be an error analysis on your test, but it will not have this many errors in it. What I'm doing is I'm putting down every mistake that I see when you guys take this test, when you guys take this quiz, when you work on that quadratic puzzle, all the mistakes that you make. If you're finding the mistakes, then maybe you're less likely to make them, okay? Also, in step 2, negative 4 times 3 times negative 8 is 96, not negative 96. Now that mistake can be said by, you see the minus and you think 4 times 3 times, I don't know, I guess negative 8 or 8. I guess a lot of people just miss the fact that the negative and the negative cancel each other out to make it a positive. But anyway, I'm still explaining their mistakes. Okay, so we took care of that mistake and that mistake. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the line. All right, now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and finish out the correct work, but it will no longer be helpful in figuring out their mistakes. So I'll have to read with them. So I'm going to do this. I've got 25 plus 96 underneath the square root. Oh, well, okay. 5 plus and minus, I guess because they messed up both, it actually will help. 121 divided by 6. Okay. The square root of 121 is 11. So I've got 5 plus and minus 11 divided by 6. Now, notice how I put 11. So let's talk for a second. Yes, they should still have the line underneath, but whatever. That's already been addressed. They said negative 121. That's perfectly fine. But when they took the square root of negative 121, they put an I on the outside, which is correct. With that error, they had a negative 121. There should be an I there. There shouldn't be in our correct work. But because they made that mistake, the I is correct. What is incorrect is the square root. If I take the square root of 121 and I say it's the square root of 11, then I took the square root of the square root of 121, the square root of the square root. And that's not what we're doing. The square root of 121 is just 11. So, and a lot of people accidentally do that. They're not thinking. Okay. So I'm going to say going from step 3 to step 4, the student took the square root of negative 121. I'm just going to say 121. We already took care of the negative. Took the square root of 121 and forgot to take the square root away now, or the square root away. Once using it. I mean, it would be kind of like saying 2 squared equals 4 squared. It's once you've applied the power, it's gone. The square root of 121 equals 11. And sometimes we accidentally say the square root of 121 equals the square root of 11. And that's not true. Okay? Okay, and so I think that is it. I did say there were 5. Now, they went back and said that everything is divided by 6, which means they probably missed less than they would have if they still only divided the square root of 11 by that. But there you go. Now, as far as the correct work, I'm not actually done. Because it's just positive 11, I need to actually simplify. I've got 5 plus 11 divided by 6 and 5 minus 11 divided by 6, which means x equals 5 plus 11 is 16, and 16 simplifies to 8/3. 5 minus 11 is negative 6, and negative 6 divided by 6 is negative 1. So that is my final answer. Okay. Let me do one more of this. Oh, do you have a question? It's still, yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to work, so I worked 13. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the solution to, well, number 14.